I made Space Invaders, but terribly. So I smacked the character into existence and gave it some hitboxes, one for the sword and one for the body, and then I also gave it a simple script which was to pretty much just point towards the mouse cursor, and then I made it automatically move towards the mouse cursor, which felt like alright movement, worked for what I wanted, apart from this. But I was too lazy to fix that, so I went on to working on the enemies, and I made them all rigid bodies so they just like drop down the screen. And it couldn't have gone any better. It went about as smooth as my local roads, but I did manage to get something that felt alright. They're just set to a timer and they can spawn anywhere along the top of the screen, and you can like nudge them around, bounce them around, but I didn't really like that I couldn't fling them across the screen. So I had an idea to make the sword and the ship separate, so I could use a rigid body as the sword to try and use the physics of that to smack the enemies off the screen, but it didn't really go to plan. It kind of just moved around on the front, and then I tried a static body and it went really quickly in reverse, so I tried a few different ways, but the enemies kind of just kept phasing through the sword, so I ended up just adding a little bit of code that just told the enemies to go flying up in the air whenever the sword touched them, and it kind of looked like a finisher move when you flung them up in the air. It was kind of satisfying, so I played around with it for a while, sort of got it feeling alright. I then decided we needed some particles, so the enemies explode yellow particles when they're hit by the sword, and then they also explode, so they burst out in like a reddy orange modulated colour. And then I was like, oh well, the sword could do with some particles as well, so I gave it some green ones and also turned the particles right the way up. The ship also got a particle trail. It was made orange, and then I was quite happy with how the game was coming along, so I was sort of like, well, I guess it's time to do a bit of art. The enemy's just like a little white ship with an alien inside of it, and whenever you hit it in game, it like splits into multiple different little pieces. Also added a simple space background in and a score counter, and then I worked on adding a bar down the bottom, so whenever the enemies passed that, it took 1 away from your HP, and you only get 5. As you can see, it works very well. Then I thought I'd work on some of the boring stuff, like a main menu and a restart menu. But overall, that's about it. I couldn't be bothered adding sounds, so it hasn't got any sounds, but that's the game. It's not great, but if anyone's interested in playing it, it'll be on my itch.io, link in the description. But if you want to see more content like this, please follow along and we'll have more shenanigans in the future.